Hello there, my name is Damien, the tall, friendly atheist dad, and host of the Tall, Friendly Atheist Dad podcast, as it says on the screen. This is a new series. This is part one titled My Old Sermons, where I've actually dug up sermons from my fundamentalist church from 20 years ago, and I'm going to read them to you. Stay tuned, buckle up, hit the music, Fergie.
So far from lies and hypocrisy, returns to energy, and silence becomes brave. Don't ask me the reason why. Just say I only dream in black and white. Future's nothingness, but I can choose another end. Opening my eyes, and you beginning in my life. Without emptiness to feel, I am sure of myself. No mercy until the end.
Hello and good evening. Yes, my name is Damien, the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad, host of the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad podcast. I'm tall, I'm friendly, I'm an atheist, and I am a dad. So yes, if you're listening to this live, feel free to leave comments, feel free to jump in the chat, feel free, so to speak. And I have in my hot little hand, well, not little, big slapper things, sermon notes from one of my old pastors. So his name is Brendan Kirby. He was my pastor for about 4 or 5 years when I was in uni, and just after I got out. For about 4 or so years, and this was in a church called, now what was the church? The problem is the parent body had one name, but they went by a different name as well. So I think. In my hometown of Adelaide, where I was from, they were called, I think they're called Hope Christian Fellowship. And I think they eventually became Hope of God Adelaide. And they were part of the wider church called Hope of God International Movement. And I could talk a lot more about that at a later time. But the thing about Hope of God International was that they were basically charismatics. So how would you put it? Modern evangelical fundamentalist. Though with the volume turned down, they were nowhere near as toxic as let's say Greg Locke or Kenny Copeland or the Westboro, definitely nowhere near as bad as the Westboro Baptist Church. So that, like, the people themselves were okay. Their problem was that they were manipulative. So one of my ideas about religion is that you have people who manipulate and who are manipulated. And sometimes you have people who are both. And so these people were nice guys for God. They really tried to, show the love of Jesus and all that kind of stuff. The problem was, though, that they would overstep their bounds and try influence your personal decisions and know things about your personal life and, even sometimes down to what TV shows you watch, what music you listen to, that kind of stuff. And so because of the controlling nature of that church movement, me and my wife left. Though it wasn't a completely bad relationship. It was just that, they weren't going... I was going to change my ways, and they were going to. I thought they were doing things wrong, and they thought they were doing okay. And Anyway, I left and went to some other churches who were a lot less rigid, a lot less. They didn't really. There's lots of things that they didn't care about. For example, tattoos and earrings. Yeah, for example, in my last Baptist church that I went to, I did have piercings and tattoos, and they didn't care; they were fine. Whereas if I went into into this Hope of God church with piercings and tattoos, so I'm going to cough. It will be, what are you doing? You're causing other people to stumble. They'll be like really tight on that. So in my hot little hand, I have sermon notes from a sermon, titled "Building Dynamic Relationships" by Brendan J. Kirby from Campus Christian Movement. So just to confuse things even more, the church movement was called Hope of God International. The local church was called Hope Christian Fellowship. But then their university outreach was called Campus Christian Movement. And apparently that was a throwback to the 70s. It felt like a throwback to the 70s. It's one of those things that started in America, I think. And yeah, so it's one of those at university outreach for Christ. Campus Christian Movement. And fun fact, I was the delegate to the Clubs Association for Campus Christian Movement at my university. And I helped. I was good friends with the president. And I'll tell you a story about that a little bit later on. So here we go. So this is Building Dynamic Relationships by Brendan Kirby. I'm just going to read it verbatim and maybe add a little bit of flair. And I'll play some music in a sec as well. So if I struggle, I apologise. I'll see how I go. In 3, 2, 1. Our vision as a movement. To help fulfill the Great Commission by building strong biblical people to plant strong and biblical churches. Actually, just before you do that, I might turn the sound on this one. Add a little bit of background noise. Yeah, a little bit of background noise. How's that feel? Okay. To help fulfill the Great Commission by building strong biblical people to plant strong and biblical churches. A vision for dynamic relationships. This is a heading. A vision for dynamic relationships. When we truly love one another and live in unity and harmony with one another and the Lord, then people will know that we are His disciples and that the Father sent Jesus Christ into the world because of His great love for them. John 13, 34, 35, John 17, 21 and 23. How important are strong relationships? The church, the family, your friendships, your workplace is only as strong as the relationships within it. Ephesians 4:16. People right across this nation and other countries are hurting others and being hurt. All around us, relationships and marriages are being stressed to the limit. The church can provide the answer to their grieving hearts. And that point actually has an exclamation mark on it. When people sense love, unity, and acceptance in the church, they will be drawn to the Lord. The central core of our being cries out for fulfilling relationships with God and each other. Alright, I'm going to pause the Uno Memento. Alright, you can have that, and I'm going to turn my killer music on from Victim of Illusion. Alright, so that's Victim of Illusion from their album Invisible Light. victimofillusion.bandcamp.com. Get yourself some awesome tunes. So there's a few points here I really want to just quickly talk about. And yeah, if you're listening to this live, feel free to hit me up in the comments. You know, I'm here to build a dynamic relationship. So he's actually, in a very human sense, he's actually right. You know, the relationships within the church and your family and your friendships and your workplace are only as strong as the relationships within it. You know, but that's a bit of a tautology. A strong relationship is only as strong as a strong relationship. It's like, yeah, okay. But even now, I just get some, like, reading the sentence, I do get some culty vibes from it. So when it says, when we truly love one another and live in unity and harmony with one another and the Lord, then people will know we are his disciples and that the Father sent Jesus Christ into the world because of his great love for them. That is kind of exactly how you would run a cult. You would go, hey, look, the most important thing is unity and harmony. So unity basically means do what I say, and harmony is essentially don't cause trouble. Now, look, I could be being a bit too cynical about that, but the number of cults that are out there that will, say, look, we're into unity, love, and harmony, and peace, and non-violence, and all that kind of stuff. So now I think this church fits the academic definition of a cult, not the pejorative definition. But there's a few things there's a few vibes gave off though that really felt very culty. So and it's just like, when we live, they'll be drawn to the Lord, as if like there's this mystical force, it's like this magic force that it's. When they hear the magic words of truth, and when the Lord draws them to himself. Great. However, at one point I do agree with is that people across this nation and other countries are hurting others and being hurt. That is unfortunately true, and I think the way to stop that is to, I suppose it's a two-edged thing, in that one, we need to teach responsibility for actions. Let's do threefold thing. One, teach responsibility for actions. Two, invest in better mental health training and therapy and things like that. And two, I suppose we need to work out a way to teach people to respect others and actually make those lessons stick. Probably the three things I would, the three principles I would, want to push if I was ever the government. So then it goes all around us. The relationships and marriages are being stressed to the limit. Well, yes, that is unfortunately true. It's unfortunately, marriages do fall apart. People go into marriages for the wrong reason. And unfortunately, people enter marriages with unrealistic expectations, with, people change during the course of the marriage. Like, for example, I'm in my 40s. I got married when I was in my 20s. And I can tell you now, I am very different from the person I was in my 20s. So 2 seconds, I'm just going to... So it's open window, getting a little bit stuffy in the the warm recording studio. Oh, studio is a bit of a dumb word for me. So so I think... Now, one of my best friends on the internet machine, overprotected atheist, she is going through a marriage breakup at the moment, and she grew up in a fundamentalist environment and more than that, she grew up in purity culture, and when she lost her religion, actually no, I shouldn't say that. But losing her religion helped her find herself and realise that her marriage wasn't healthy, is all I'll say. And look, if you want to find out more from Overprotected Atheist, she can tell you more about it. She's a great person. She's funny, she's great, she's intelligent. And that's one of the cool things I'll say about atheism, is that there's so many funny, intelligent women out there. You don't really find those in the church, but in atheism, oh my god, so many women who, a bit of a rant here, but there's just so many women who have, like, I suppose, blossomed, and they're just genuine, and they're open with their foibles and all that kind of stuff, and because they're not in the church. What I've noticed is that you do have strong, intelligent women, but their value is in relation to a man. Whereas in atheism, I know plenty of women who stand on their own two, whose intelligence and prowess is on their own 2 feet. And I think that's fantastic. So, this line here, the church can provide the answer to their grieving hearts. What's that? Pray, like, submit yourself to a third-party authority, let magic words flow over you, have a magical curse removed from you. It's, yeah, I don't... Yeah, the problem... Yeah, and I suppose which church has the answer? Like they say the church, and I think they mean like the church, like the ecclesia, like all churches in general, collectively. But it's yeah, it's this. I suppose what you say is a statement without substance. Because yeah, I'm trying to think. Well, what's the answer? Definitely not therapy. But yeah, but then this last line here really made me chuckle. When people sense love, unity, and acceptance in the church, they'll be drawn to the Lord. No, I'll be drawn to the Lord when I see some actual evidence for the God that the Lord is apparently the son of. Or it could be himself, because this is the thing, is Jesus God? There's not a straight answer for that. Yeah, and even if there was a church full of people who cared about it, and look, actually I'll say my local Baptist church are full of some of the most warm-hearted, genuine people I have ever met in Christianity. But the fact that they're warm-hearted, kind, gentle souls does not mean God exists. Like, if you want me to be drawn to the Lord, I need to... And you see, it's actually really weird in that this is a classic cult tactic as well, in that your good behavior is meant to evangelize to others and to draw others to Jesus. But that's kind of classically how you I suppose get people to believe in Jesus in an unintellectual manner. Like, you're not there to prove the historicity, and you're not there to answer rational questions. You're there more to, acts of service, and that will then kind of like draw you in, and hopefully the magic words of truth will hit you. And then this last line here, the central core of our being cries out for fulfilling relationships with God and with each other. He's half right. The motorbike going past. I enjoy interacting with people most of the time. When I'm grumpy, I don't. But no, most of the time I do. I enjoy. So I have friends. I have people who are all that kind of stuff. But But as an atheist, I've been an atheist for now about 7-8 years now. And I don't have a desire to know God. I do wonder if there's something out there, but I'm not going to go, I don't know what that thing is, therefore God. I want to know, as I've said to numerous Christians, I will not come back to faith. I want to know God by knowledge, not by faith. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go to the next part of the... Now, that was only the first slide, the first third of the page. This is how much I can ramble on. But yes, I will... I'll put this back on, and I will turn the music off. And there we go. So, 3, 2, 1... Christianity is a relationship. It is not dutiful, blind service to an unknown being, or the striving of penance, or the pursuit of self-righteousness. It is a relationship with the Lord. It can be summed up in love God, obey Him, seek His will and direction, and love others. The church is a family bonded with relationships. Poor relationships fragment when tested under the pressure of accusations, fault-finding, mistakes, hurts, and harsh words. Love is the perfect bond of unity. Colossians 3:14. How do we begin? Building strong, enduring, understanding, supportive relationships takes time and effort, but it is worth all the investment. And I'm going to hit that there, and a victim of illusion can come back in. Okay, so I am inclined to agree with that last sentence. That building strong, enduring, supportive relationships takes time and effort. I'll agree. Some relationships, that you have, as I've noticed in my life, just happen naturally. Some of my best friends are just people who I just click with. Just one of those things, when you find someone who you click with and it's like, bang, yep, Now, having said that, there are people who I've clicked with and things have fallen apart. Okay, unfortunately, things do fall apart. But is it worth all the effort? Sometimes no. And I was telling one of my best friends. You can find her that_126 on TikTok if you're listening. she's a funny lady. She's a funny lady. Was saying I had a business partner who I was best friends with. He got along with my kids. I got along well with his kids. We had that very inappropriate sense of humor. It was great. But then we had a falling out, and we haven't spoken to each other since. And I've wasted a couple of years where I could have made the argument was about business, and unfortunately for a couple of years, initially it was okay because we were free to make decisions, but then in the end the decision making process got hamstrung because of I suppose insecurity, expectations, stuff like that. And so so you kind of have to, it's not a magical thing where, hey, I build a relationship with someone and it will definitely be worth it. Because let's say you build a relationship with a psychopath. And unfortunately, psychopaths are there. Or someone who's just manipulative. It's not a magical force that, your kindness will, cause them to not be manipulative or stop them being a psycho or stuff like that. And there was actually sorry about that. There was a meme I saw the other day, and it really rings true. Let me just find it. So the meme is of a Pikachu jumping in the air, and there's a speech bubble next to him, and he says, "Nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who were oppressing them." And then there's a comment under the picture that says, "I love that it's Pikachu saying this because Pikachu attained freedom by electrocuting the fuck out of Ash and outright refusing to get into the fucking Pokeball." I think that is gold. I think that is brilliant. That is brilliant. But as much as I agree with Pastor Brendan J. Kirby on this 2/3 of a sentence, I'm going to have to brickbat him with his paragraph just above where it says, "Christianity is a relationship." No, I can. Christianity is a relationship is a mantra said by those who haven't quite fully appraised the nature of the Christian, Christian theology. Or, okay, so for Christianity to be a relationship, the Bible has to be wrong. That's there's no two ways about that. And then it's interesting that he goes, It is not dutiful blind service to an unknown being, or the striving of penance, or the pursuit of self-righteousness. It is a relationship with the Lord. It can be summed up in love God, obey Him, seek His will and direction, and love others. So, it's interesting he goes, it is not dutiful blind service to an unknown being, and yet in his love God section he's got obey Him and seek His will and direction. So it's just interesting that, it's not dutiful service. Just do what you're told. Like, come on, guys. This is the thing. And, like, just thinking about that. Where Pastor Kirby says it's not dutiful blind service, I would have to say that particularly in the Hope movement, if you weren't at either a Sunday morning service or a midweek group or something, or even at one of the major events, you would be like the next time they saw you, they would ask you, "Hey, where were you? What were you doing? How come you weren't there?" Even if you were late, sometimes they go, "Well, you're not setting a good example." So it's, in some aspects it's not dutiful blind service, but then in some aspects it's treated exactly as dutiful blind service, to the point where even if you're late, it's kind of, So to an unknown being, Christianity is service to an unknown being. You don't know God. And to quote one of my favorite authors, David B. Ramsey, he has a book on Amazon titled "Speaking of God, We Don't Know Shit." And he is absolutely right. Speaking of God, we don't know anything about God. The Bible, I would not call the Bible evidence for God. No more than I would call the Book of Mormon evidence for Moroni, and what I call Scientology evidence for Zeno. So think about that. So there's a love God and love others. Well, the other thing is that God did command obedience. This is the thing. Like, even so, it's just interesting where Pastor Brennan goes, "It is not dutiful blind service. It is not dutiful blind service." But then we look at the example of Saul in 1 Samuel 15, where God tells Samuel to tell Saul to commit genocide against the Amalekites. And then we see in 1 Samuel 15, I think 28, around there, where God is angry with Saul for not killing every single man. So the commandment in 1 Samuel 3 and 4 was to kill the Amalekites down to a baby. Kill all their men, women, children, infants, cattle, donkeys, whatever. Whatever is Amalekites, kill it. Saul and his men bring back some of the choice animals to sacrifice, and they also bring back the king. I think his name was Agag. God is angry with Saul for not killing King Agag or the animals. So at that stage, the Amalekites are no longer a threat. But God is still unhappy. And this is the thing, like, if God made this test for Saul knowing he would fail, then it's purely God's fault. If God's made this test and, God is more interested in people dying than in there was no threat either. This is the thing. God sends Saul to kill Amalek because of what Amalek did to Israel when they were going from Egypt to the Promised Land. So this was a revenge hit. So Israel was not under threat. But God is unhappy because Saul didn't kill absolutely everyone and everything. So you can't say that it's blind dutiful service. Or there is a verse in, I think, 2 Samuel, where David is bringing the ark back from Philistine territory, and one of the men touches the ark to stabilize it to keep it from falling, and God kills him on the spot. You know, there were others. There's a story in the Bible. I'm just going to let me see if I can find. Okay, 2 Kings 13:18. Or 17 and 18, and then 19. 2 Kings 13:17. Open the east window, said Elisha. So he opened it, and Elisha said, shoot. So he shot. And Elisha declared, this is the Lord's arrow of victory, the arrow of victory over Aram. For ye shall strike the Arameans in Aphek until ye have put an end to them. Then Elisha said, take the arrows. So he took them. And Elisha said to the king of Israel, strike the ground. So he struck the ground 3 times and stopped. But the man of God was angry with him and said, you should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times. Then you would have struck down Aram until he had put an end to it. But now you will strike down Aram only 3 times. Alright, I'm back. I've got the warm reading son next to me. And he's just exiting the room. He wanted to ask a question, as kids do. Okay, as you know, strictly speaking, that wasn't God getting angry with him. That was, you know... But it's just something even Tiggy Touchwood as that, you know. Like, you're only going to strike down the Arameans 3 times rather than the 6 that you really needed to, even though I wasn't going to tell you that you needed to. But now it's your fault that you didn't strike the ground enough symbolically. Even like this man has God's authority, so you could have said, hey, look, I'm gonna test you. Just I'll give you 10 sticks. Make sure each one hits the ground when I say hit the ground. But no, it's so it's very hard to say, you know, it is not dutiful blind service, when in some aspects, especially in OT times, it absolutely is. Or actually, hold on, that's the other one I had in mind. Give me a sec. Lay on. Okay, in Ezekiel, Ezekiel 4, God tells Ezekiel to lay on his side for 390 days. And then, once he's done that, he's to lie on his other side for 40 days. Then this is all symbolic, you know, regarding, it's like a protest against Israel. So, you know, if God came to you and said, hey, you lie on your side for a bit over a year, let's say, get some, yeah, whatever you're going to do, whatever you trusted me with, I'm not going to do it. But no, so Christianity is absolutely not blind dutiful service. No, not one bit. No, it's just you know, leave your family, you know, let the dead bury their own dead. Don't even grieve your relatives. You know, if you had a wife and kids, they're now, you know, they have no way of supporting themselves in a rural agricultural society. Good one, guys. That's what we want. Yes. So yeah, it's and this is the other thing, is like, how do you know God's will? And it's a bit of a tricky one, because like, it's not like God ever comes down and like comes to you face to face or sends you an email or a message or something. You have to rely on either your fuzzy feelings, or someone else to talk to you on God's behalf. And I find that interesting, because then they're relying on fuzzy feelings as well, and it's interesting. Anyway, I'm going to end part one. I've gone on for a while now. So in the next part of my old sermons, actually, give me a sec. Give me a second. But yeah, so you can tell that this sermon is, well, it's just religious propaganda. It's just, pray and be a good little Christian, I'll say Christian lapdog, but yeah, just be a good Christian. Everything will be okay, and don't, just try to be a good person. And I'd say, look, just try to be a good person anyway. You don't have to worry about all the other extraneous stuff that happens, but yeah, I was looking through, and I've actually made some notes myself, and reading those notes actually kind of spoke to the mental health issues I was having at the time, and so quite interesting. But anyway, my name's Damien, the Tall Friendly Atheist Dad. Find me on www.tallfriendlyatheistdad.com, Twitter @TFADpod, facebook.com/TFADpod, YouTube, whatever, just search for tallfriendlyatheistdad.com, and find the podcast on Anchor, Google, Apple, and all the other ones as well. But until next time, this is Victim of Illusion with some of the songs from Invisible Light. Ciao.
I am sure of my